Oh, and Rich is getting in. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new year, the January 2026 5 Miles from Anywhere meeting. I'm excited that we have Chris Chan as our guest, renowned author as he is. And again, as I just said earlier, we're going full circle because Chris was our first guest on 5 Miles from Anywhere back during like pandemic time when we first started this, and this was how we all got together. But now we can all start getting together in person, or we are getting together in person, a number of us, next week, actually, at the BSI weekend. So I look forward to seeing some of you all in New York. And if not there, I know a number of you guys have local science societies you can also join, and there's other great events coming up too. And I'm sure some of you will share when we do announcement time. So without further ado, let me share my screen and we'll just get going. Oh, wait, hold on one sec, 'cause I just saw, I think someone's trying to get in. There we go. All right, so turn on the slideshow. There we go. All right, so for today, we have our announcements, of course, as usual, as we always start with. And then Chris will be talking about two kind of different books, but it'll be really cool to hear about both of them. He's got Sherlock Pomes and the Autistic Sleuth, and that should not be a question mark at the end. That was a typo on my part. It should be a quotation mark, but that's all right. And then we'll have a nice discussion as well, and really cool stuff here. This is a really interesting stuff. I'm sure we'll have an awesome discussion with Chris after he gives his talk. So I guess the only announcement I have as of right now is, of course, that we've got the BSI weekend starting Wednesday, longest weekend in the world, Wednesday to Sunday. And all events, or most of the events, except for the big dinner on Saturday, or Friday, my bad. Wow. Hey, it's early here. Um, are open to the public. So if you are in the area and do get to go, would love to see you there. I'll be presenting at the ACD Doylean Honors Award at the Mysterious Bookshop on Thursday morning. And I will, after that, if you want to go, by the way, or even if you're not there, you can stream it. So I can share the link to that. You definitely, I think you all will end up knowing someone who's going to end up winning an award. So it'd be really cool if you can do that. And then I'll send out the link afterwards as well, so everyone can join if you'd like. Should be a lot of fun. And also, Belanger Books will be Saturday in the Merchants Room in the West End. And so again, it'd be great to see some of you all there. Okay. Other than that, I know a number of science societies. My own, Dr. Watson's Neglected Patients, will be having a January dinner. I'm sure a number of your science societies will as well. So if you are in the Denver area, you can certainly join us at January 23rd, I believe. Either 23rd or 24th, whatever that Saturday is going to be our dinner at the Denver Women's Press Club, which is a nice Victorian historic building in Denver. So I'd love to have any people come in.
It is the 24th.
24th, thanks, Larry. Larry's one of my partners in crime at Dr. Watson. So thanks. Thank you. Okay, so like I said, I figured a number of you would probably have stuff to share. So I'm going for announcements. So I'm going to stop sharing. So if I can let people jump in if you have something to share or have a BSI weekend event you'd like to tell us about or anything at all, simply use the hand raise button or unmute and just shout out for a second.
Yeah, I'm Tom Burns. I have a new book out. It's called The Pilgrim. It's a 3M detective agency story, and it's on Amazon. Check it out.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. All right, Shayna.
Had to unmute. Hi, so I am here in New York. Wanted to give you a forecast for next week. We are in luck. It looks like the temperatures will be in the mid to upper 40s. There is a forecast of a shower on Wednesday morning, but aside from that, doesn't look like there's any precipitation planned. Um, Things like, partly sunny, partly cloudy. So we're in luck because this past week it has been bone chilling cold here. So we really lucked out. The other point I'd like to make is I run the William Gillette Memorial Luncheon on Friday afternoon. We're pretty well full up. There are a few seats left. If there's anyone who wants to come and has not yet made a reservation, I am putting the URL for the webpage, which has all the information you need. Um, and I hope to see you all.
Thank you so much. And yeah, awesome event. You guys get like a ton of people for it and a lot of fun. So excellent if you can make it there. Walter.
Well, I hope you don't blush, but I'm going to talk about your book, Crimes for Christmas. Santa Claus seemed to have brought one, and I didn't know this, to my grandson way out in Stanton, Virginia. I live down here in Virginia Beach. And so my daughter, who's kind of a daughter of a Sherlockian, she and him are reading the stories. She got it right before Christmas. But Sony PlayStation seems to have taken his new Sony PlayStation has taken most of his time. He has read the first story, and so have I. I guessed, and it was just a guess at the solution. I won't say what it was, but he is still working on it. And hopefully by the end of this weekend, he will have the answer, and then we'll go to story number two. So thank you, Derek. A fabulous Christmas gift, and I'm sure Santa knew exactly what to give my grandson.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you, and I'm glad that it's you're doing it as a family kind of reading. That's very cool. That's kind of some of the stuff I wanted with that particular book. So appreciate that, and thank you for sharing that. Oh, we got a few more coming in. Okay. Any other last announcements before I introduce our speaker for today? Anything else? All right. All right.
I have a question.
Go for it,
I would
Danny.
like to buy Bob Sharfman's book. Look at the right one here.
But I
But
digress.
I digress. And I
Yes.
don't know how to do it. I went to my indie bookstore and they cannot order it. And so I don't know how to go about it. I guess it has to do with the oh whatever.
Should be able to
Anyway,
order it.
and they're really good about finding stuff. I mean, they're great. And they spent a long time trying to find it and they could not find it. And so I really want to buy the book, but I don't know how to do it.
Well,
And if
um,
somebody could help or put it in the chat or something, I would certainly appreciate it.
sure. And you can order it from us, or you can go to Amazon. But if you want to support independent, it is open to wide to distribution. It might just not have shown up yet, but they should be able to order it for you.
All right. I mean, yeah, I much prefer indie bookstores, so I try to
Sure.
avoid Amazon when I can, because I want to
Um,
keep my little bookstores open.
sure.
Excuse me,
Walter?
your indie bookstore, they might not want to because I used to work for a bookstore, but they can order it from Amazon and claim they got it from what we used to call our, our back room somewhere. We found it. They can order it for you if you go in and say, listen, I know where it's available. Please give it for me. They might charge you a few more cents than it is on Amazon. They
Yeah.
might charge you the original price, but they can get it for you if you fuss with them enough.
Well, all right, I can try. I mean, I've known these people for a long time, and they're really, they're great people, and they usually can find practically anything for me. So,
You send me an email after we're done, and I'll send you information. Okay, we'll make sure you get the book. Okay.
thank you, Derek.
And honestly, what I might be able to do is get Bob to sign you a copy in New York and then send you that. How's that
Oh,
sound?
hey, listen, love you guys.
Now you're
So,
talking, Derek.
yeah, there you go. Okay, Susan,
Good afternoon.
good
Happy New
afternoon.
Year, everybody. I just wanted to say a special thank you to Brian for helping me out with Essential Sherlock Holmes Volume 4. My post office was having trouble getting it here, and he moved a few mountains, and the book actually showed up, and it was very kind of him. So thank you again, Brian.
You're very welcome.
So
I hope
remember
you like
that,
it.
Brian, if you need to move mountains, we're gonna come to you.
I did. Sure.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Let's talk about our good friend Chris here for a minute, because he's got a ton of things we got to work. And this is I took this bio from you online, my friend, and it's very good. So Chris Chan is a consulting detective who only investigates fictional crimes. Though I don't know, man. I don't know. Now with what we just talked about, maybe we need to change that, huh? Chris works for Agatha Christie Limited as a writer, researcher, and international goodwill ambassador, who reaches out to Christie fans around the world. I mean, how cool is that? Um, when fans, scholars, screenwriters, journalists, or anybody else has a question about Agatha Christie or her work, he does the necessary digging to provide the answers. He's also worked on crime fiction investigations for publications, theater companies, scholars, authors, and avid fans, digging into the works of Golden Age mystery writers, reading manuscripts to test the difficulty of the literary crimes, tracking down potential plagiarism and copyright infringement, and answering questions ranging from how many times did Agatha Christie use arsenic in her books to what was Father Brown's first name? If you have any questions about a mystery writer's work or need help organizing information connected to fictional crimes, Chris Chan can help. Boy, just by reading that out loud, man, you're going to probably get a lot of emails from here on out. He's also a historian and an information scientist with degrees from Marquette University and UW Milwaukee, specializing in literary history, the history of crime and punishment, mass consumption, the history of science, Asian American history, and the history of Milwaukee. He teaches at the high school, college, and graduate levels, focusing on courses in history, literature, political science, and mathematics. He's also a contributing editor for Gilbert magazine, a periodical devoted to the work of G.K. Chesterton, and a DVD and book reviewer for The Strand magazine. His short mystery fiction and true crime articles have appeared in several magazines and anthologies. And of course, he's written also a number of books on his own. And really, I would say do a search for him and you'll see all of his books, and every single one of them is delightful. So let's give a warm virtual welcome for Chris Chan, who will be talking about the Autistic Sleuth and Sherlock Pomes. And I'm just gonna start, as he's going, I'm gonna start muting people just to make sure there's no background noise. But Chris, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Derek. Real appreciate it. Can everybody hear me okay? Just want to make sure. All right. Just wanted to test first. Happy New Year. It's so good to see all of you here. And I think I would like to start by talking about my book, Sherlock Poems, which came out just last year, and I call it the complete adventures of Sherlock Holmes in verse. And this is basically what happens when you have a lot of imaginative ideas and way too much time on your hands. So it's very, very, it's quite, there's, it's, I just, it's happened one day when I was just thinking about some things such as Roald Dahl's revolting rhymes, when I was thinking about some classic fairy tales being converted into rhymes. And then I remember this book called Shrinklets we read in high school a bit, which is basically you take all these classic works of literature, all turned into short poems, none of them more than about a page or so. And I just thought, I just did some thinking about what else could be turned into poems one day. And this was about the summer before last, back in 2023. For one, I'm thinking poems and Sherlock poems. And so I wondered, has anybody ever turned Sherlock Holmes stories into poems? So I did some searching, and I was surprised to find there wasn't very much there about that. I was sure that someone else would have come up with the title Sherlock Poems before I did, but the only thing close to that was this one woman who wrote what she called some Sherlock Poems, which was basically fan fiction connected to the BBC series Sherlock. So that was so I thought to myself, I have got to do something with Sherlock Holmes before someone else comes up with this title for ahead of me. And so it's the case of I thought, well, how many Sherlock Holmes stories can I turn to poems? And then I think for a while, and I think I really have to do all of them. It's either like at first I thought I could just do some of the most famous ones, but I just thought, well, I'll just get started. So in about August of 2023, I sat down and I tried to use I came up with a rhyme scheme, and then I just came up with uh, the Adventure of Charles Augustus Milverton was the first story I turned to a poem, just because I came up with the worst man in all of London was Charles Augustus Milverton. So I thought the rhyme scheme worked pretty well, and I had a couple of goals here. The first was to include as much of the actual plot line, the details, characters, clues, and above all the famous lines, as many as I could, without making it way too long. And then the other issue is that I wanted to address is I wanted to have fun with the canon. I never wanted to make fun of the canon. So none of this is would be parody, but at the same, but it would, but would be I want it to be funny as well, or just to include some jokes here and there. So you know how it is. You've got life gets in the way of things, but every now and then I had time to start working on one and then another, and pretty soon it was Christmas, and I go, oh, I only have about 15 of them. And so, starting in the winter, I just made myself sit down every night and turn an entire Sherlock Holmes story into a poem, and little by little, I got there. But I realized I didn't want it to be the same old like eight syllable or meter. I had 8 and 7. But what I also wanted to do was take some other classic rhyme schemes and poems. That's why I figured I would take the Blue Carbuncle and set it to the night before Christmas. Turns out, and I only found this out a couple weeks ago, Scott Monty of the podcast I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere has already had done that as well, and I guess other people have as well, which I found out. And I guess, but so I feel, but again, mine again different wording. I guess a lot of people have the same idea. But and I took another. I knew immediately that I wanted to take The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe and use that for the Hound of the Baskervilles. And then I don't know how many of you remember Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes, but to one of his treasuries, he came up with A Nauseous Nocturne, which is basically a poem where Calvin's worrying about the monster in his bed, and I realized that is perfect for the Speckled Band and others. I used the rhyme schemes for a couple of Gilbert and Sullivan songs, like Three Little Maids I used for the Three Ghirardebs. And sometimes it was very interesting where I came up with things because when I was writing just the other year, my one of my Funderburk and Kaiming mysteries, Well-Behaved Children Still Make History. I had the idea that I wanted the young client to be a fan of South Park because I figured it would suit his character. But I actually had never actually seen an episode of it, and I actually technically I still haven't from beginning to end, but I have seen some YouTube clips. But did some research, and when I found this one clip of them singing the dreidel song, and I realized when I had the dreidel, dreidel, dreidel I made out of clay, I realized that it would perfectly fit data, 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 can't make bricks without clay from the copper beaches. And so that was another rhyme scheme I had there. And so that's just, again, this is what I wanted to do. You come up with all sorts of rhymes and songs and just wanted to have fun with the canon there. So, Derek suggested I do some reading, and I just didn't know if did anybody have a suggestion, or should I just start with I don't know, just an opening what they had from a study in Scarlet. Uh, Well,
I wouldn't mind hearing that Hound of the Baskerville one.
okay,
It sounds pretty cool.
all right. Well, okay then. Well, I appreciate the request, so I'll start with that then. Thank you, Larry. And so, the Hound of the Baskervilles. So. So starting out, as I said, more or less to the rhyme scheme of the Raven only. If you'll bear me with your indulgence, that do me, as I say, dear reader, please do me a favor, and for the purpose of this poem, pronounce the doctor's name Mortimer, for the sake of the rhyme scheme, please. In other cases, a bit of similar stretching would also be appreciated. So. One morning at 221B, a walking stick Watson studies. While the pair were out, somebody left it behind the night before. Well, Holmes asked with sparkling wit, Watson, what do you make of it? John studies the cane bit by bit, every clue accounted for. This odd visitor, John infers, is the man James Mortimer. The man's profession is doctor. The doc's a man of advanced years, well esteemed by all his peers. He must live in bucolic spheres. Cane's from 1884. CC8, Watson gives a grunt, stands for the something something hunt. Sorry, Watson, Holmes is blunt. I give you a failing score. Your deductions are all faulty. Listen to me, don't get sore. I'll point out your first error. Your face should not be all that long. You were not altogether wrong. True, he likes to walk a furlong in the country furthermore. If my reasoning is judicious, this fellow is not ambitious, and it's further supposititious that he's younger than 2 score. CCH, Charing Cross Hospital fits better a doctor. Ah, he's returned to our door. Enter a young jovial fellow, friendly, obsessed with skulls, mellow, pulls out a manuscript yellow. 'Tis Baskerville family lore. Here's a legend that I have found, 'bout a supernatural hound, stalking over Baskerville ground, haunting a great swath of moor. Holmes finds this entire story one great big enormous bore. He doesn't care anymore. James observes Holmes's interest chill and explains Sir Charles Baskerville. A massive heart attack had killed before he saw the doctor. Down the alley Charles was walking. He must have seen something shocking. So scared that his knees were knocking and he collapsed on the floor. Had a heart attack that left him dead as a stegosaur. Wait, Mr. Holmes, there is more. By the body scattered around were the footprints of a huge hound. Watson's mouth is open and round. Holmes's interest does restore. Young Sir Henry is the new heir, and I fear the curse will not spare the man. He doesn't have a prayer, unless, Holmes, you can explore and discover the truth behind what caused this Gothic horror. Holmes agrees with real fervor. Sir Henry comes on the morrow. Holmes, I know your work is thorough. Have you a boot I can borrow? One of mine's vanished like vapor. Boy, does that really get my goat. By the way, I've received this note. In cut and pasted words is wrote a threat that I can't ignore. As you value your life and reason, keep away from the moor. I will save you, Sherlock swore. Excuse me. After some more misadventures, Holmes sends John solo to the moors. I'll be glad, Holmes assures, when you're safe at home once more. Watson and pal start to travel. Coach wheels turn upon the gravel. Hope the villain's plans unravel, otherwise Henry's done for. Then they learn the convict Selden is hiding upon the moor, the Notting Hill murderer. They arrive at Baskerville Hall. Dull light and fog leave a grim pall. Welcome, Sir Henry, comes a call. It is the butler, Barrymore. Leaving servants to their labors, Henry and John meet the neighbors. Jack Stapleton, what's mine is yours. Can I give you a tour? That's the great Grimpen Mire. Take one false step, your odds are poor. Please be careful, I implore. Then a lady comes to Watson. 'Tis the sister, Miss Stapleton. Leave this place, go back to London. Beryl hisses with our door. Then Sir Harry falls for Beryl. That makes her brother turn feral. Tensions rise, a sense of peril. John looks down the corridor. With a candle at the window is the butler Barrymore. What is he doing that for? Stapleton's still behaving sus, and the butler's actions nonplus. Plans Watson and Henry discuss. They will spy on Barrymore. They're up late, although they're tired. Butler's response uninspired. Tell the truth, or you are fired. Enter Mrs. Barrymore. Convict Selden is my brother hiding out upon the moor. She sobs in her pinafore. She can't bear to send him to jail. Those actions beyond the pale. Henry's efforts to catch him fail. Here's a clue, says Barrymore. Though what it means I can't tell. Sir Charles got a note signed L.L. Laura Lyons, it's a bombshell. John tries not to be a bore. Lyons claims she has no idea what happened upon the moor. There's a man upon the tor. Watson goes to investigate, sets a trap with himself as bait, sits in a hut and forced to wait, holds his service revolver. The mysterious man comes back. Watson prepares for an attack. Just then a familiar voice back. Lovely evening, dear doctor. I think you will be more comfortable if you go outdoor. Sherlock Holmes is on the moor. Watson can't believe this twist. His protestations are dismissed. Watson's long reports were not missed. Over them Sherlock did pore. Stapleton's a twisted mister. Beryl's his wife, not his sister. Jack's our villain, Holmes's whisper. He's scum. Pardon my candor. I will bring down Stapleton, just like the wizard Dumbledore would battle Lord Voldemort. First a scream, then a sickening thud. Holmes and John run across the mud, find a body lying in blood. 'Tis Henry covered in gore. Holmes notices something weird. The dead body has a beard. It's not Sir Henry as they feared. 'Tis the convict they searched for. Wearing Henry's clothes provided by his in-law Barrymore, Jack has much to answer for. Time the story reached its climax. Holmes and Watson says they'll make tracks. Don't you worry, we will be back. Holmes is Henry's guarantor. They'll resolve this imbroglio. Lestrade comes and makes a trio. Suddenly a figure aglow appears and runs across the moor. The hound of the Baskervilles attacks Sir Henry. Poor Senor! Watson aims his revolver. Sherlock also fires his gun, hits the hound, kills it, and it's done. It looks like the good guys have won this unsettling little war. Henry's wounded, but he'll be fine. Sherlock then inspects the canine. Though it gives off ghoulish shine, and it's big as a wild boar, 'tis no spectre, but simply a huge doggy dipped in phosphor. Stapleton they must look for. When they search at Stapleton's house, they find he's tied up his spouse. Boy, is she mad. That dirty louse, he's run off across the moor. The remains of a tin mine are where you'll find that filthy liar. He'll be hiding in the mire. The darned human cuspidor. Before they catch Stapleton, he slips and falls in muck impure. Will he emerge? Nevermore. Sherlock then explains to Watson, Stapleton is Henry's cousin. If Jack's plot was successful, then Jack would be inheritor. First the hound chased Sir Charles to death, stalked Henry with fetid breath. Elementary, his shibboleth. That was his cruel plots wherefore. This is their biggest adventure since they solved this sign of four. The pair's plans, an opera score. And that is my take on the Homes of the Baskerville done to the Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So
Oh.
anyway, I hope
Wow,
you.
let's have a short one now. That was a long poem. It's good though. Got the whole
Do,
novel.
do you have a haiku?
Yeah.
You
Do a
know,
short,
I
do a
thought
short story.
I I generally, I tried to work with some haikus, and thanks to all of you for your kind words. It's just a case of I was just trying to find something that, as I said, get the rhyme scheme right, and it's just I realized, I thought it really seemed like kismet when you're trying to do something that you to the nevermore rhyme, and you have a Dr. Mortimer and you have the Butler Barrymore as what and all these other it just it's some I don't it just seemed like it seemed like it was almost it was made for to fit this poem, so
I'll never be able to read that novel again without hearing all the oars ahead.
yeah, so well, I hope as I said, I look at these and I didn't want to ruin the original canon for anybody. I figured people who would read this would already be fans of it, but I just thought that it's a case of it's just as I said, if you've read the book, the stories and the books, you'll recognize the classic quotes, the lines, and the scenes. So it's sort of like I guess this is sort of like it's a case of something fun for fans, just because the better you know the original stories, the better you'll appreciate the in-jokes, the references, and it's amazing how easy it was to make some of these famous lines fit the rhyme scheme as well. All it took was a little twitch here and there sometimes, or it was easy to come up with something that matched it.
Hey, Chris, I'm curious to know um, what was the trickiest story to adapt to verse? Like what was the one that maybe took you a few days to figure out?
Well,
Sorry. I went to mute myself, Chris, and I muted you.
all right. Yeah. Can you hear
Sorry,
me
I'll mute
all right?
myself.
Yeah. That's well, I think it's sort of funny because the longer I went, I think the longer I went, the more I wanted to make sure I wasn't reusing the same rhymes. So that was I think that the further it goes, but I think one of the hardest ones was the A Study in Scarlet. Just because, and it's and like, and if some people may think I cheated a bit, but in both A Study in Scarlet and excuse me, The Valley of Fear, I decided just to skip over the flashback scenes where Holmes and Watson did not appear. I'm very open about that, and I mean, if I'm going, I won't read the whole thing. I don't want to try your patience, but as I was saying, as I'm looking here I'm just trying to find out. Um, it's so. Oh, when I was in studying Scarlet, I at one right at the end of part one, I said the story cuts to Utah, where, I must say I don't care. I read these for Holmes and Watson. My interest, if they're not there, none. So why waste time? Let's not be bored. And so we were all fast forward. And so that's how I covered basically the entire flashback scene in A Study in Scarlet. So it saved me a lot of time there. But that's again, you talk about dealing with difficulties. That was just my tactic. So,
Very cool. Um, I want to make sure you have a chance to talk about your other book. Does anybody else have a question about the poetry? Maybe we'll have a chance to come back to it later. I do want to make sure we get to the Autistic Sleuth as well. Um, Anybody, you can just kind of unmute and throw a question out if you have one.
I would just like to say if we have time to do another one at the end, I would love to hear the Blue Carbuncle.
Oh,
So
okay. Perfect. All right.
it is the shortest story, so maybe it's the shorter point.
actually, technically, I also had the final one of the last sections is all the apocrypha. So there's the other the super short flash fictions as well. It's how Watson learned the trick and everything too. Just summed up in just a couple of lines.
Yeah. All right. Um, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about your... Oh, Jenny, do you have a question?
Well, not a question. I just I read the book quite a while ago already, and I absolutely loved it. And I loved it because I learned so much more about autism by reading it. And I know several autistic people, and I feel that I now am a little more prepared to know how to, I don't want to say deal with because that sounds like that's very condescending, but to know how to interact better with them and understand what's going on um, with them to the best of my knowledge and ability. And so I really enjoyed the book a great deal, and I want to thank you for doing that and educating anybody who reads the book. They'll learn a whole lot more, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot. Yeah, I think I guess if saying to the Autistic Sleuth, for those of you who aren't familiar with the book. It's I re noticed a while ago that there are a whole lot of detectives you notice on TV shows and so forth that seem to be in many ways on the autistic spectrum. And this is important to me in some ways because I was diagnosed with autism several years ago, and I've been interested in seeing too how the difference between real life and Hollywood, and also, well, BBC as well, because I noticed a number of trends, how you'd find all these characters on TV that would be have all these would have qualities of autism. I mean, one of the famous examples of Dr. Temperance Brennan on Bones and so forth. But and there's all these cases too where you'd have a character who exhibited all these characteristics, but they never would diagnose officially. So they never want, and I noticed there were a lot of bad stereotypes as well, because, for years there was a horrible false a theory that says that autism was caused by refrigerator mothers, that is, cold, unfeeling mothers, and it was simply garbage. But you notice too that in a whole lot of these television shows that I looked at with all these people on the spectrum, that almost none of them had healthy parental relationships. And I went through all of these and realized that of all these shows, the only detective that was often portrayed as being on the spectrum with two living, happily married parents was Benedict Cumberbatch's on Sherlock. And I realized that wasn't there's a good reason why they were portrayed so warmly. They were portrayed by Cumberbatch's real life parents. But as I looked at all of these, because again, some of these shows I'm listing too, because I noticed Sherlock Holmes, not just on Sherlock, where at least one person, only at one point does Watson suggest that Sherlock has Asperger's. But there were also shows when I looked at the Robert Downey Jr. Movies. There were a couple of cases where a lot of people have said that the way he plans his actions ahead of time, and you see him like in a busy restaurant responding to all these stimuli. A lot of people think that is showing autistic reaction, so I included him as well. And if you're, there's a couple of Japanese series calls them. One's called IQ 246, The Cases of Royal Genius, which is a Japanese Sherlock Holmes take, which has a whole lot. It was again possibly on the spectrum, and the gender swap Japanese series, Miss Sherlock as well, and exhibits some examples to include that. But I have covered everything from everything from well, Chloe O'Brien on 24. There's a French series, Astrid and Raphael, which I know they just did a British version called Patience, which came out too late for me to put in my book. But I mentioned there's The Bridge as well, a show called Chasing Shadows, not as famous, but Criminal Minds, CSI, Detective Suite, that's a Chinese series, everything from Doc Martin and Elsbeth and this is a Korean drama, Extraordinary Attorney Woo, a new favorite of mine about a young lawyer with autism who and the Hannibal, which if you saw that version, the TV series Hannibal, it got some flack because Will Graham on that show claimed that he didn't have it talked about how autism meant not having empathy, and that's not what he had, and that caused, again, that's another stereotype in the media that I'm trying to address because autistic people do have empathy, but it's often hard for them to understand what other people are going through, and they often need more help with that. So, again, the other points there to address, and so, yeah, and everything from some of the Law and Order series, Monk, Mr. Mercedes, Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes, and the uh, the Outsider, the character of Holly Gibney, very much on the autistic spectrum. Murdoch Mysteries, Number One Ladies Detective Agency, Professor T, Queens of Mystery, and and I realized there are about 20 series or so without a prominent detective with could be on the autism spectrum. And I know I had another friend of mine tell me that it came out after the book was written. This new show, Ludwig, is very likely on the spectrum too. So I think that if this keeps on going another several years, I might write a second expanded edition. So I guess I've given an introduction to that, but I guess did anybody have any questions? Because there's so much to talk about in so little time that I just wanted to know if anybody had any thoughts or anything they would like me to bring up, talking about just how the idea of, I guess one of the things I wanted to address is the idea of autism, neurodivergence, as being in pop culture, the idea of, well, this is how being smart and quirky and different might make you a better detective because you think differently from other people. And I think in some ways it's a positive stereotype because the idea of thinking differently can help, but at the same time, it runs into the autism is a superpower trope, which, not to denigrate anything, because for some people, having a certain mindset can really help them process information and come up with approaches different and perspectives different from other people. But at the same time, a lot of people really have difficulty functioning with autism, and I think that it can be very hurtful to some people to say that some people with autism can have it can get abilities while other people just feel disabled. So I think it's a complex situation because there's a quote that I did not come up with, but it said a lot. If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Because the idea of the autistic spectrum, there's so many diverse ways of thinking and processing mental information that it's a case where I am trying to make it clear it's not just one way, and it's not just one style of brain function is necessarily better than another, but it's a case where we have to understand just what Hollywood gets right and wrong and what they don't address. So, anyway, I hope I'm making myself clear here. I'd be interested to hear what people have to say.
No, you're good. We have quite a few hands up with questions, Chris. So when you said, "Oh, I don't know if anyone has questions," there's quite a few here. Joanna, why don't you start? Because you haven't said anything yet today, and then I'll go to Tom. Uh, oh, did we
Yep,
lose
I'm
you?
here. I'm
Okay,
here. I'm
perfect.
sorry. I was getting the buttons ready.
That's all right.
Yes, I read your book and I was curious as you may not know this, it's kind of a little bit of a digression, but has anyone ever done a study on whether the proportion of people on the spectrum within Sherlock fandom differs from the proportion within humanity at large? Because it kind of occurs to me that I've met more people who are, I mean, and certainly it depends on whether people are willing to be open about it. But there seems to be a lot kind of connecting that particular fandom with that particular I don't want to call it a disorder, although that's what it's labeled, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if there's been any study because, it's hard to tell because it's like I said, a lot of the great fandoms are big tents that let in everybody. But I
Mhm.
think, Derek, you had another book about, Sherlock Holmes is everywhere, and you talk about all these different groups that have all these connections to Sherlock Holmes, and I think that that's one of the great things about Sherlock Holmes is that he appeals to all sorts of people for all sorts of different reasons, and it doesn't have to be just because he thinks like you. But I think one of the things I point out here is that a lot of these detectives on these shows can be used as a metaphor for how people think when they're on the autistic spectrum, and you can say, "Well, I'm just like this," or "I'm totally different from this," and I need to explain why, and I can explain how, because sometimes when you feel like your brain's totally different from other people's, you can't you compare to anybody else's, but a fictional character can. So I think as I said, I think that a lot of people may see, on the spectrum may see a kindred spirit or in Sherlock Holmes. But I guess like I said, so I just yeah, again, it's a case of a lot of people are undiagnosed, and
Mhm.
too. So it's a very high. To answer your question, I just can't tell. We don't have percentages, but I do think that a lot of people might at least find an interest now. When I look online, a whole lot of autistic forums mention how much they like Sherlock Holmes.
Mhm. Well, and when you're talking about TV shows too, having the intellectual person not understand people or emotions gives the Watson role something to do, and that's more than just comic relief too. So,
Exactly. You see that on Sherlock, how
Mhm.
you've got on that show, John Watson is in many ways has to be the bridge to human
Mhm.
world. He has to polite, and I mean when you see on the show Bones in the early seasons, Bones's catchphrase is pretty much "I don't get it," and that's
Mhm.
why she needs her friends and part to help her interact with these situations. So I do think that is a major theme with this. You see basically in a lot of these shows, you have the autistic person who is socially awkward, and then you have the people person as the
Mhm.
counterpoint.
Mhm.
All right, Tom, you want to unmute, Tom?
Yes, Chris, I have not read your book. I will put it on the list for sure. And I don't want to trivialize what you've done at all. However, it seems to be a trope with detectives to be eccentric. And I wonder if a lot of this isn't so much, let's say, accidental, where someone is trying to create eccentricity. And the eccentricity translates itself into behavior that can fit behavior in the autistic spectrum. I'm thinking of someone like Nero Wolfe, who is very erudite. He's not a people person, not at all. And sometimes, many times, seems to go out of his way to be offensive, uh, or at least uncaring. But is that a manifestation of some type of neurodivergence, to use that term? And I could go on, but I really think it. I've struggled with my own work in trying to. I like to create people, not um, not eccentrics, not a character, but just a person, and then use those personal traits to personalize the detective, and just to get away from that kind of eccentricity. Monk, and actually, I met Lee Goldberg a while ago, and we had some discussions about Monk and how that character came up, and I was very interested to hear his take, and how he enjoyed dreaming up the situations that he would put Monk into. Send him to Mexico and make him drink the water, for example, that kind of thing, which was amusing. So, I think there's more to it. And I really think it does stem from this desire to be different, to be eccentric. And that's my take.
Yeah, and I make it clear in the book, I'm not definitively saying that any of these characters is autistic, except for the ones the very few that are officially diagnosed. But I do think my point is that they are often examples of what could be. And I think, there's been on fan forums, you mentioned Nero Wolf. A lot of people say, have debated hotly at times, what do you call it? And what's eccentric? Because it's true, it is a trope. I mean, there's a Simpsons episode where there's the Agatha Christie Museum of Quirky Detectives. And I think, especially with the um, golden age or traditional puzzle mysteries, the idea that the detective is quirky or eccentric or different in some way. And I think that it could, because diagnoses are often I mean, in the real world, a person can go to three different doctors. One person will say, you are definitely autistic. Another doctor will say, no, I don't think you really are artistic. And another person will say, you're on the borderline of the spectrum.
Mm.
So because it's not like, diabetes or something where we can get a blood test and, yep, you're definitely diabetic. It's a case of you've got mental health professionals evaluating your responses to questions, hearing you talk about yourself, and they come up with different responses. And it's a case of, as I said, it's not it's an exact science sometimes, but I wrote this book because using these examples, showing how certain characters think and so forth, it may just help people who are struggling communicate, to interact, to explain themselves. And I just think, again, it's meant as a tool, not to make because that's the goal, and definitely not to argue that this character is definitely undiagnosed autistic, so much as to help people who may be watching or viewing. Because I find that, using examples from books and movies and culture are excellent metaphors that help me interact better.
Okay, we have two more questions and we are down to 4 minutes. So I'll ask Walter and Larry to kind of be brief if you can. Larry, why don't you go and then Walter?
Okay, well, mine will be quick. Just to mention, it's a real thing with the idea of autism being like a superpower, but but there is some of that even in the Jeremy Brett's, where the Holmes is more fragile and needs his Watson to help him, kind of to be nice to women, nice to people and stuff, which is not what the Canon shows necessarily. But the book I want to make sure got mentioned was Mark Haddon's book, The Curious Adventure of the Dog in the Nighttime. And that's a story where his autism gets in the way of him wanting to solve that mystery, but which, but solving the mystery is how he grows and learns to deal with a larger world. That one specifically addresses autism.
Yes, and absolutely. And I addressed the book and the play in the my book as well. In fact, it's in the title too of some of the main sources. So yes, no, definitely. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is one of the most famous examples, and that's why I wanted to make sure I
Yeah.
included it.
And the irony is I bought it and read it because I was a Sherlockian. And I know the quote. I wasn't really looking for a book on autism or I just wanted to see what that was. So it's interesting.
Yes, definitely. Uh,
All right, Walter.
Years ago, I was helping out with a youth group, and I had what a doctor told me was a gentleman who had high functioning Asperger's. And when he needed to leave, he would tell me, Walt, I have to go outside for a while. I'll be right back. And he'd do that. He was slowly curing himself, he felt, of this high functioning autism. Years ago, his last year in college, I got a call from a company saying, we would like to hire this young man, but we don't know if he can really solve our problems. All we do is solve business problems. So I said, okay, then ask him the question that you can't solve. Tell him all the things he can't do. He can't rob banks. He can't do this. He can't do that. And then he'll give you back an answer. Well, the guy kind of laughed at me. Okay, he called me back in 2 hours. He said he's solved this problem. We've hired him. Thank you so much. The guy is a genius. And I love the guy for, I asked him to do a talk at the youth group on the Lord of the Rings and Christianity. He came up with a 12-hour series, and we did that, and we had a wonderful time.
wow, I'd love to talk to this guy sometime. He sounds like a real cool guy. Yeah.
All right. Uh, well, we're actually pretty much out of time, my friends. I know some people have to head out. An hour always seems goes by pretty quick in this group. Um, Chris, thank you so much for this. I feel like we just kind of scratched the surface of both of your books. So, and there was a comment already in the chat like, "Hey, can we have Chris come back?" So, you're always welcome. And I know that the project we before we started the meeting when we chatted, I think that would be a great topic for a future meeting. But thank you so much. Appreciate you. And just keep doing what you're doing because it's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and best wishes to all of you. Have a wonderful rest of the day, everybody.
Thank you. And I will see a number of you probably in a few days, a few of you in New York, a few of you in at least one or two of you in Denver tomorrow even. And then rest of you, February, we will be back with our next 5 miles meeting. So, and again, if New Year, I have February and March booked, but if anyone wants to give a talk or would like to discuss a story from the canon, just send me an email and we can add you to the list. So thank you all and have a wonderful weekend and Happy New Year again. Take care.